Hey guys, how you doing? It's Tom. I'm back with another video. And in this video, I wanted to talk about there was an unfortunate incident in Dumaguete. I don't live in Dumaguete, by the way. I'm in the Quezon City area, the NCR region. But in Dumaguete, I think it was about 3 or 4 days ago, a lady uh, was walking in downtown, like in Dumaguete City, and she was walking down the street, and this is a Filipina, you know. Turns out, I think she has a husband and two children also, but she was by herself and she had groceries. She had like a bag in each hand, so she's walking down the street, and a homeless guy or whatever, asked her for money because he was hungry, and I don't know if there was any verbalization from her, or whatever, right? But I mean, she's got her hands full of groceries. So those aren't usually the people that you should ask for money, right? Like whether they're Westerners or locals, Filipinos. So anyway, she didn't. I mean, she didn't give the guy money. She kept walking, and it was on camera. Like they had CCTV cameras, and and then this guy just walked up behind her and stabbed her in the back. Like in the upper back or whatever. Probably below the neck or whatever. And she died. You know, like I think by the time a trike took her to the hospital, to the emergency room, like probably fairly quick, I would imagine. And she unfortunately passed away. Uh, but this kind of shed some light, right? On there is a lot of people here. If you come to the Philippines for the first time, don't be shocked, especially if you're in a city. And I don't care what city, like a smaller city, medium city, big city, right? There are going to be people that are asking for money. There's poor people, homeless people, and oftentimes maybe they'll have a cup or something and they'll just sort of put it. They don't necessarily always verbally ask. Sometimes they'll just put their cup out, to try and get a donation. Um, but this now a little bit of background on that incident I just mentioned in Dumaguete is from the newspapers. I read a couple newspaper articles about it, and I think the attacker or whatever, the suspect was like, I think he's 26 years old, and he apparently had been in and out of prison before. And they said something about like he might have been addicted to, or not addicted, but he might have had issues before with rugby, which is not in the Philippines. That's not British football. Okay, rugby is actually an adhesive. So basically, a lot of times poor street kids in the Philippines will inhale rugby, which is like sniffing glue in the U.S. Especially any of you guys are like in your 60s, Americans in your 60s especially. You may remember in the 1960s in America, sniffing glue was a thing, with kids. Sniffing glue, airplane glue, whatever, to get a cheap high, you know. Well, this stuff is like a similar, it's an adhesive of some kind. It's a bonding material, and there's something in it that, gives them a cheap high or whatever. But it also does brain damage. It can do like serious, like, brain damage or whatever, hallucinations and all that other stuff, right? So anyway, I'm just mentioning that, but we'll see what happens with this case, because they have different kind of laws here sometimes. Like if you commit a crime like that and you're mentally impaired or whatever, it's a little different than it is in the U.S. Where You may wind up in a mental institution in the U.S., for possibly even the rest of your life. Here, I'm not sure what they do. To be honest with you, like I really don't know if it's the same. If it's or they just feel like, well, you're out of your mind, so you can't really put you in prison. I'm not. That's all I'm gonna say. Do your own research about that. But but I can tell you that it's probably different than the way they do it in the U.S. The detention time is probably a lot less or whatever. But we'll see what happens because we don't know if he wasn't impaired at the time, then it's not going to be an issue. You know what I mean? You can't just say, oh, back 3 years ago he had a problem with this and he went to prison for something. But whatever. In my mind, right? If he wasn't impaired at the time of doing this, then probably can't use that as a defense. But hey, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an expert on Philippine law or anything like that. But I'm just, but my point of this video is that it sort of sheds light on the fact that a lot of guys don't talk about it. A lot of vloggers in the Philippines, Western vloggers, but there's a lot of people here that they ask for money. You know what I mean? And especially if you're a Westerner, they assume that you got a lot of money. You know what I mean? Like, especially at least compared to like the average Filipino or whatever. So you will be a target, and if you're here by yourself, you'll be more of a target. You know what I mean? If you're with a Filipina girlfriend or wife or something, and you're walking down, I mean, yeah, you'll still be kind of a target, but they'll break off easier. You know what I mean? If you just don't say anything. I recommend this, okay? And some guys might tell you different, but in my mind, because I had spent a lot of time in Manila before coming here to live, okay, on previous trips, with Amy, and we were in Pasay for like a couple weeks, like a couple times I think or whatever, probably 3 or 4 weeks total, like in the 3 trips. So that's inner city, I mean Pasay, you know what I mean, and there were kids that we'd go from our hotel to like the food court area of a kind of a mall or whatever, the Double Dragon Mall, and not on every trip, but on this one trip, like these young kids were asking for money, man. I mean, there was like 3 or 4 of them, not just one. And if you're Western, especially, I mean, they were getting aggressive. They'd touch you and, kind of like, you're like, I'm like holding on in my pockets and I'm like, not saying anything, but, sometimes, to me, it's like, hey, just don't touch me. You know what I mean? Like, I understand you're going to get in my face and ask me for money, but don't, like, you start touching me, then I'm going to say something, and I'm not going to yell or nothing. I'm not, try not to make scenes here, by the way, if you're in the Philippines, it's not like America where you can start spouting off and yelling and stuff, just, that's really frowned upon here, so just say something, if you want to say something, fine, try not to, but if you have to, just tell the kids, hey, don't touch me, please, or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, that's a little bit, to me, that's a little bit too much. I mean, I'm from Chicago. We got homeless people there, too, and always have been, like in downtown areas, in the South Loop, where I used to work, 25 years ago. Man, there was a lot of homeless, believe me. And some of them had mental problems, So you just kind of like, you don't disrespect them, but just don't, you can't, if you start giving, let me put it to you real straight. If you start giving people, everyone who asks you for money, guess who's going to be out of money? You. Like eventually. You know what I mean? You just can't be, I know it's hard sometimes. You want to help people. Well, there's other ways to help people here. There's a little more organized ways, and you can have your Filipina girlfriend or wife, organize things, and maybe you can provide, financial help with it, okay? It's probably best not to be directly involved, especially if you're on a tourist visa, because you're really not supposed to work, and you're not supposed to really be actively involved in any kind of charity or whatever, like that. But just have your girlfriend or wife do it. But if you want to provide some money for it, that's one way to help. a little bit more organized or whatever, But as far as people asking on the street for money, I just don't. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, listen, maybe twice since I've been living here. One time, we were coming back from the hospital or something. This was probably last year, or. And a lady with kids, would ask me, and we had just bought something, and I gave her like 20 pesos, or you know what I mean, like, not a lot of money, just whatever, 20 pesos. And then there was another time where there was an older guy that just was not aggressive at all. He was just sitting there with a cup, just kind of like head down and trying to rest or whatever, and I gave him like a bottle of water because I actually had a bottle of water and I didn't need it. I mean, we were going home. We weren't far from home anyway, so I was like, hey, I'll give him some water. He's out here, it's hot out. But I mean, that's about it, like, you can't, unfortunately, you just can't. If you start giving people money, you're going to be a target. You're going to get swarmed by other homeless people. You know what I mean? Like, the word will be out, you know what I mean? And every time you're seen walking, on the same route, going to the mall, going wherever, you're going to be, oh yeah, they're going to really get in your face and stuff. So, but don't say anything either, you know what I mean? Don't be like disrespectful, you know? Just keep walking, you know what I mean? Just keep walking. Don't even, try not to make even eye contact, just carry on, That's the best way to do it. But yeah, I mean, what happened with this guy in Dumaguete? I mean, geez, who could predict that? I mean, that's a very unlikely scenario. You know what I mean? Like, I've never really heard of that happening here. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, that guy wasn't. I don't know. He could have been. Like, obviously some kind of drug addict or something. I don't know. But it's very unusual. And he said, "Oh, I was hungry. That's why he stabbed this lady because she didn't give him money and he was hungry." And I'm like, wow, really? Like, anyway, but it's definitely something that you should be aware of, when you come to the Philippines. And, you can do what you want, right? I mean, you don't have to listen to me, but I'm just telling you, if you're going to be living here, especially, and even when I was visiting here, right? Even when I was visiting here, I knew enough to be like, no. And it's not so much because if you're only here for 3 weeks or 4 weeks and, whatever, technically, yeah, you're probably, if you just give them like 20 pesos or something, you're probably not going to run out of money. But the problem is once you start doing that, I'm telling you, it's going to be, you're going to be the guy, like, oh yeah, that guy gives money, and you'll start getting swarmed by homeless or whatever. So anyway, it's just my little advice or whatever. Take it with a grain of salt if you want. But that's all I got to say about it. But yeah, it was a very unfortunate incident though in Dumaguete. I mean, geez, I feel terrible for this lady and her family. I think she has a husband and 2 kids, I think, at home, and it's just not a really horrible outcome. So anyway, guys, that's about it. Please like, comment, subscribe, share, and have a great weekend. It's actually already Saturday here in the Philippines, so it's probably Friday night in the U.S. Our internet's been out too, but mostly at night. Like, I think yesterday it was midnight until about noon, and then it came back. And then tonight it must have happened in the middle of the night, 2 in the morning or something. And it's probably, hopefully, going to be back by before 2 o'clock. They say 2 o'clock, but it could be noon again, hopefully. So, because they're doing this, they must be doing this switch over between PLDT and Sky. You know what I mean? It's got something to do with it. It's not just like a erratic outage or whatever. So anyway, guys, that's it. I'll talk to you later. Have a great weekend coming up. And until next time, I'll see you later.